Welcome to the Get Wealth Show, where we uncover the secrets to building real wealth through real estate from the people who have actually done it. Each episode gives you proven strategies, modern market insight, and actionable steps you can use today to build wealth through real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Michael Hoang.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Michael Hoang, and today I'm here with my friend, Jack Haas. Jack, how you doing again, brother?
Hey, great to see you again.
Yeah, I say I'm back again because I was on Jack's podcast, and I was on his other, I forget the name of it, but you launched a second podcast now, right?
Yeah, it's called Real Deal Cast. We focus on technology and how to level up regarding without having to level up your headcount.
Yeah, I love that. I need to watch some of that, and maybe I'll implement some of your AI strategies, and I can come on the podcast and talk about how that's impacted my business. Be excited to
Yeah,
give
I'm
that a
working.
try.
I started scripting out a video to kind of describe or explain like the differences between the open ChatGPT versions right now, because their naming conventions have kind of gotten a little wacky. So I think people need a little primer on a little help on identifying which one to use in what case. So
Yeah, I use ChatGPT every single day, but I guarantee you I'm not using it the right way. I'm not implementing it in my business the way I should be. So we could talk more about that. I'd actually love to see the Real Deal. We were talking offline about the Real Deal crew and some of the products you got. I need to see how I can implement that because I already have VAs and I'm already using ChatGPT, and we're about to have to level up our headcount with VAs. And I'm like, no, let's try to leverage technology first before we start another salary.
yeah, in fact, spoiler alert, I've been consuming a lot of Dan Martell stuff lately, and he tells you to write a job description now and see if you can do some of those jobs through automation before you add the headcount, because in many cases you actually can.
Yeah, I'm real estate retired now, but when I had a full-time W-2 job, it was just a couple of years ago, and we were starting to implement an AI strategy, and I don't know if it wasn't there yet or we had the wrong people in place, but we were like, let's leverage technology more. Let's utilize AI. Let's not add more salaries on. And that didn't go very well, but AI has matured a couple years more since then. So I'm kind of excited to see what that could do for my business.
Well, it's anecdotal, and I won't be able to share the name quite yet, but I helped one individual that's in the podcasting space as well, and he told me the other day that just a couple of the strategies I helped him with, he unfortunately had to let two of his VAs go because he just didn't have need of them anymore.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to let my VAs go. I have a really strong team, but what I want to do is scale my business without bringing on 2, 4, 6 more. In the past, I was running a bigger VA team, and I don't want to go back to that. There's something that can happen a lot of times in people's business where you increase your headcount and you increase your revenue, but then your profit to the bottom line doesn't necessarily go up, and you're working twice as hard for the same amount of money. And I want to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads to the real estate investing. I told you that we were doing some of the wholetailing, and that was actually the exact reason why we focus more on that strategy than any other.
Yeah, well, yeah, I want to talk more about how you're doing wholesale deals. And what's your market again?
I'm near Fargo, North Dakota.
Fargo, North Dakota. I love that when you said you're investing in North Dakota. So we got to talk about that because we've had some wholesalers on the show before, and they've talked about how, like, oh, you can virtually wholesale nationwide, but here's a couple states I wouldn't do, and then North Dakota always appears on that list. So we'll have to talk more about that, about why that's such a great market for you and your team and your strategy. But before we jump into all that, can you tell us about like your first real estate deal?
Well, the first real estate deal actually was a turnkey property, and it let's just say it didn't end very well. Turned out to be something that, in hindsight, was one of my most expensive lessons.
Okay, so you bought a turnkey as your first deal, and that didn't turn out exactly how you want. Do you want to go into detail to that, or do you want to talk about like your first juicy deal?
Yeah, well, I'm going to avoid some names because apparently he's been very aggressive regarding litigation when it comes to bad mouthing him and what happened. So, but yeah, I bought a turnkey property in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it went so well, and the person had a great reputation. In fact, he had a kind of a national reputation that I was just convinced that well, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, he's not going to do anything to ruin his reputation. So I bought a duplex from him as well, and then one thing, getting rents on a regular basis, everything seemed to be going quite well for about a year, and then it just stopped. The rent checks just stopped coming, and it turned out that his business partner was leveraging other investors' money to pay rents for the properties that weren't being finished. So it turned into a big Ponzi scheme.
Wow. And this guy, you were in like a mentorship or coaching program with this guy?
No, well, we were it just introduced through his podcast, and then like I said, he was on a national stage, so it was something that we thought was a relatively safe bet.
I see. And there was a turnkey deal, and it went bad, not because it was a bad property, but it was just bad partners, bad people involved.
Well, it turned out to be a bad properties, bad businesses, and if I had to do it over again, the first thing I would have done was realize that if you're going to spend that type of money on a turnkey, at least you could have probably spent a few $100s to fly out there and check out the operations in person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad way to look at it. Okay, so when you moved on from that, do you want to talk about your first deal you did on your own after the lessons from that were learned?
Yeah, the other deals. This is one of those things that I've talked a few times about, is the fact that when you get that, you know, the low hanging fruit in our business, of course, is wholesaling. You're going to try to get that first property under contract, and that first one is the hardest property to get. It just is. Because at that particular moment in time, you aren't convinced that it's possible. You're just kind of running on faith at that point. When that first property hits, that light bulb typically goes off, and then the next one comes a little sooner. The next one comes a little sooner. The the only thing that has changed is your perspective. You now believe, and you now have the experience that this actually works, and that confidence comes through when you're talking to any of the distressed homeowners.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of people get started. Their first deal is in wholesaling, and so you didn't wholesale on your first couple of deals, though, did you? You were trying to buy and hold or flip. What was your strategy?
We were strictly focused on buy and hold, and then we started to make those local. We were following the advice we were hearing. The make the connections with those local small banks to underwrite internally, and we actually did pull that off quite well. We had a number of banking relationships, and we were able to acquire a number of properties that way.
Nice. Yeah. Can you give us some tips for finding small local banks around us? I've heard a few different opinions on how you do that.
Well, a lot of the stuff that we were doing was around building your network. In fact, we had joined multiple real estate, not real estate, just different business meetup groups locally, masterminds, if you will. There was Master Networks, and I think there was another one called Fire, and there are these different business networking groups, and that was one of the best ways to do it, because we were the only real estate investors, and even though they would limit like the number of realtors and the number of in each group, we were the only investors, so we were joining multiple groups and building our local network as quickly as possible. So that was be primarily where we met most of the bankers and we made those initial banking relationships.
Oh wow! So you were going to like business networking and things that were not real estate specific, and you were networking and meeting people, and there just so happened to be lenders or representatives of the bank there.
Yep, that are they're trying to make those, most of those people are commission based. So they're actively trying to join these groups. And like I said, we were kind of in a unique situation because most of those groups are going to limit the number of bankers in that group. It's typically to one. So being investors at the time, we were like the only investors in town. So we were joining as many groups as possible. And the fee for some of these groups are relatively minimal. So we just added that as part of our marketing budget.
Nice. Yeah, some other tips I've heard for finding small local banks that are looking to do loans with investors is I've heard go to Google and find banks that have only one or two or maybe three branches. Give them a call, ask to talk to the lending department. So when you talk to the lending department of these small banks, usually like you might be transferred directly to the president of the loan department or the president of the bank, or the loan processing guy is like one step away from the president of the bank. Several people that are doing a lot of business here in Houston, they have made relationships with these kind of small banks. And for anybody listening, you don't have to go do what me and Jack are talking about, especially if you have a full-time W-2 job. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are very accommodating with getting you loans on rental properties if you're buying them right. Don't put down a ton of money. If someone's telling you to put down 20% or more on your money, you need to listen to people like me and Jack that'll show you how to get into properties the right way. But there's also other products like a DSCR mortgage now that Jack didn't have the privilege of using back when he first got started. And even when I got started just 8 years ago, there wasn't these 30-year fixed DSCR loans that are out there. So there's lots of options. So don't think you have to do what me and Jack are talking about. However, if you're a full-time entrepreneur or a full-time investor like me and Jack, you need to broaden your options beyond Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA loans. But if you've got a full-time job and you're just getting started, there's a lot of great options out there for you without going this route. Jack, you tell everybody, if you were new and just starting out and you wanted to find a deal, how would you tell new people just getting started to go find property?
Well, I'm going to say this is going to be here's a quick tip. And I'm just going to say it's going to depend on your market, of course. But in my market, weirdly enough, they still publish a phone book. So you can imagine where I'm going with this. Who has phone numbers? Who has a landline phone these days? It's typically the population I'm trying to reach. So if you got more time than money, you start going down the phone book pages and actually start dialing. You can actually go to whitepages.com for that matter, do a search for your area, and those people who have landline phones are typically that older population that has more than enough equity in their house, and you can just dial for dollars.
Yeah, when we're looking for a deal, we're typically looking for a house that needs a lot of work, has neglect on it, needs or just needs updating, and it's got to have a lot of equity in the property. The loan's got to be paid off. Or in my market, if they don't have 50% equity or more, there's no way that we can then bring in the capital to fix the property up and still make a profit. Every market's a little different, but typically we want older homes that need a lot of neglect. And guys, I pull the data and look at it all the time. I'm not targeting elderly people, but there's not a lot of 25-year-olds that have owned a property for 15 years that needs a lot of work done to it.
Exactly.
So I got started in direct mail, and I used to target absentee, out of state landlords on properties. So these are properties that are paid off or close to being paid off, that they've owned for 10 or more years, and the guy who owns them is out of state or at least out of the county. And it just so happened it was older people that had two or three properties. A tenant trashed them, or they needed their money out, or they were about to go into foreclosure. And they can't list with an agent on the MLS because the agent comes and looks at the home, says, you need to do this, this, and this to get the property ready for the market. It'll be $50,000. And the reality is, it'll probably be more when they talk to a contractor. And those people either don't have the money, or like the house that I'm sitting in right now, I bought for 50 cents on the dollar off market for cash. The guy lived in Killeen, like in Central Texas, and he had like mineral rights. He had oil wells. He has a ranch, and this property was paid off. And the guy was not in a bad financial spot. He just didn't want to dethrone this wonderful life he had on this ranch in Central Texas and come down here and deal with it. So it's not necessarily people that are in distress or having trouble, but we're just looking for a problem to solve. And if they've got equity in their home and they're looking to close quickly for cash, or they're looking at owner financing or some more creative options, usually you can find a way to solve that problem for them, and you can make a lot of money doing so. But I love that in your market, you guys still publish a phone book.
Yeah, they still publish a phone book. It's kind of interesting. You bring up solving a problem. That's how I bought my last house. Actually, was the that was just a couple weeks ago. We had a situation. If you don't mind me sharing an actual example, but this person, we had reached out to her a couple years ago, actually, and she still had that letter when we talked to her the first time around. Um, she then had been since then fallen even further behind on her taxes, and she needed some serious help. And there was another investor in this deal, so we were competing against somebody else. However, we were the one that was willing to get her creditors off of her back. So I paid off of her the past due taxes and some of the utilities, so she had some breathing room, because she was a bit frantic. She didn't know what to do. She can't even get in the right mindset to get the house cleared out so she could move out. Um, so what we did was simply put the money in escrow, and when she hands me the keys here in the next couple days, the escrow pays her the balance of what's in there, and she can walk away. I get a house. But more importantly, I've learned through experience that having that money sitting in escrow incentivizes her to still move forward. Otherwise, we have a permanent renter.
Yeah, I've done something like that before. So anybody that's listening, if the day of closing they're not moving out, you got to hold back some money, significant amount of money, probably more money than it would take to process an eviction, to keep the seller moving. The sad truth of it is, people just want their pain or their problem solved quickly. Second you solve that problem, they go right back into being lackadaisical. So I've negotiated things like that before, where I've paid for self storage units, movers. They said, "Hey, I need 10 days." We give them 10 days, but we hold back a lot of money to make sure in escrow, and we don't hold the money. The escrow at the title company holds the money. So they know the money's there, and they know the money is real. But there's a limit to how much of what they call it in Texas. We call it a lease back. I don't know if it's called differently for you guys.
Yeah.
But they call it a lease back, and there's a limit of how long you can lease back. So guys, we're not giving them 90 days or 180 days. We're not taking on a tenant, because eventually it becomes a whole different issue where they're basically a long-term tenant, and then the eviction process is very difficult. But if someone wants, I'm comfortable doing up to 30 days. I know people who've gone further than that. Um, but yeah, if we're keeping someone in place after we're closing on the property, a short amount of time with a lot of money held back. I mean, in my case, a lot of money. If we're paying them, I don't know, for fun numbers, let's say we're giving them 50 grand. I mean, I'm not, and they want to stay hanging back. I want at least half of that money being held back in escrow, if not more. We just want to give them bits and pieces to show them we're serious. Have you ever had a problem holding back 50% or more if they're staying in the property?
No, in fact, in this case, I held a majority of it back, except in fact, we were buying this house for 120. I would imagine. I think what's left in the escrow right now is closer to 90. But we found a title company that's willing to work with us too, so that in her case, when she finds a property like an apartment or something, the title company cuts a check to the new landlord directly, to so that it doesn't doesn't slow up, or isn't the finance isn't a bottleneck. Or we have the title company is making the payments to the utility company during that time.
Wow.
So,
That is a
but
great title company.
we have a very accommodating title company.
I love that. Yeah. And if a title company doesn't want to work with you the way you need to be worked with, man, there are title companies everywhere. Call around, and unless there's like a law or some kind of regulation preventing them from doing it, especially a lot of title companies, they want to do retail transactions. They want to do Susie Q and Johnny, whoever, buying their personal residence and their dream home. They buy a house once every 7 to 10 years. That's what a lot of title companies want to do. They just want those retail transactions. So find the ones that are seasoned with working with seasoned with working with investors, and you'll get much better service, and they'll go above and beyond. Man, you got a great title company there, Jack.
Yeah, it's been great relationship. In fact, the person who was the head of the title company started her own. So it's very used to working with investors and helping us with some pretty crazy transactions.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that, brother. So,
So, but then you're talking to a guy that I bailed a guy out of jail once to buy his house. So,
hey man, the bigger the problem you solve, like I heard this one time, so I'm stealing it and repeating it everywhere. Your compensation is directly correlated the size of the problems you're willing to solve. And so, Jack, you've chose to solve some really big problems, and for that, you're very well compensated. And if someone's new and just starting off, you don't have to solve these big problems. In fact, there's people that make a business model out of just solving these little problems quickly over and over and over again to get little checks. But rather it's real estate, entrepreneurship, or even sometimes in the W 2 world, you're compensated directly proportional with the size of the problems that you want to solve. Want more money? Solve bigger problems. Jack's out there 2 a.m. picking up somebody from the county jail to get a house. So get a house sold.
I did. It was the county jail. I drove to the nearby county and bailed him out.
Took him straight
we
to
even
a notary. Took him
had-
straight
had
to a
the-
notary.
Well, there was a notary. There happened to be a notary in the like one of the police officers. One of the guards was a notary or something. So he took the contract into the cell and had him sign it.
Oh man, I love it. Okay, so tell us what your business looks like today.
Well, we primarily do what we call wholetailing. We buy properties from distressed homeowners directly for the most part, and do the bare minimum so that they qualify for the needed financing and try to get them turned as quickly as we can. We found that we did the whole flipping thing, but in the end, we learned that, with holding costs and a few other things, we were making roughly the same margin, taking care of the low-hanging fruit and getting it on the market and selling it for a lower price than going through the full flipping process.
Yeah, I know several people here in Houston that kind of do a wholesale strategy as well. So instead of them gutting the property, bringing it all the way up to 2025 standards or whatever year this is you're listening to this podcast, what they want to do is they actually want to offer a lower price to buy the home because they're going to put it on the market for a lower price, and it is going to be safe and functional home when you put it on the market. But there's people who need access to those kind of deals. There's people that are willing to fix the house up themselves or don't care if the kitchen hasn't been updated. They care if the water turns on when you turn the sink. And so we've got to service all communities here. I've actually gotten some negative backlash from people when I've talked about anything less than gutting a house completely and totally redoing it. It's like there's markets out there for people that, I mean, there's markets for everything. Like not everybody needs a 2025 luxury SUV. Some people just need a used economy car, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, in our economy as well, frankly, we have a lot of buyers who have moved down in their purchasing power. So they're looking for a house with maybe a little equity or something that they can add equity into. So they're looking, those retail buyers are actually looking for similar opportunities.
Yeah, that's right. There's many different consumers that we have to serve in our market, and the riches are in the niches. I tell people when they DM me on Instagram, at Michael B someone on Instagram, I tell them it all works if you work it. And so find the niche that you think there's demand for and just stay in that lane. And so for you, it sounds like that's wholetailing in your in and around Fargo and North Dakota. Do you do the whole state or do you just do the Fargo area?
Just the Fargo area, we're on a river. So there's Fargo, Moorhead, Minnesota, and then there's a bunch of satellite communities. So unlike Texas, where you're at, my entire population area, I'm talking about maybe 500,000 people versus you're probably dealing with millions.
Yeah, tens of millions. Yeah. And so do you do like you just follow that river down, even if it goes to other states, you're marketing in other states?
No, well, Minnesota, North Dakota, just because of the situation there. We have done something up in it's called Grand Forks, and there's another situation where it's Minnesota, North Dakota again. But there are some rules between the two states. You mentioned you have some wholesalers who won't touch North Dakota. There are some rules in North Dakota that I can see why some wholesalers don't want to play there.
Yeah, so if someone did not live in North Dakota and want to wholesale a deal there, what kind of rules or regulations would they run into?
Well, unless you're ready to close on the property, you actually have to hold a realtor license. So in North Dakota, that's one of the big rules. Thankfully, we close on every property that we touch ourselves. You can't do assignments of contracts otherwise.
Can a wholesaler double close?
Yeah, probably, but we haven't been double closing in quite some time.
Okay, so you're
And
taking
that was
title.
something that our title company, they had never experienced that before until we did the whole double close thing.
What's that? Where you're double closing, or I'm sorry, what are we?
Yeah, there was no concept of double closing in my market until we did it.
Oh man, I love that. You're a pioneer, Jack.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's one of those things. We're just behind the times on some things, and
yeah, and that creates opportunity. That's the arbitrage, right? And that
right.
that creates the opportunity. I love to hear that. People complain when the county records aren't digitized or you can't find anything on a quick Google search. I love it. That's a barrier to entry that creates opportunity. We got to find these inefficiencies in the market and find a way to speed things up and get the consumer what they want.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we just don't see as many wholesalers, especially on the North Dakota side of the river, than we used to. But it doesn't really matter. Frankly, a lot of the wholesalers, they bring us opportunities. The numbers typically don't work anyway.
I see. So you're not like here in Texas. It's very common for an investor to partner with a wholesaler. I found a lot of my deals on my own, but I've worked with wholesalers and realtors, and I'm still working with them now. They send me deals all the time. But you're saying in your market, it's uncommon for you to work with a wholesaler.
Yeah, well, I get people calling me claiming they're wholesalers all the time, and they want to understand my buy box and all of that. But in fact, there's one wholesaler in my market that I got to give him credit. He's been sending me houses on a fairly regular basis, almost weekly basis. However, the margins and his ARV are just way off. And I've tried to coach him a little bit on getting those numbers dialed in, but they're just not doable.
Hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, to be a wholesaler just takes a weekend boot camp. So a lot of them don't know what they're doing. Some of them are intentionally misleading, and it's just kind of like with real estate agents. Like it's 90 hours and two tests for most states. You got to be a real estate agent, and so they'll make claims they don't know how to comp. In most states, they don't even teach real estate agents how to run comps. I mean, they expect the
Hmm.
broker to do that. So it's not uncommon for wholesalers and real estate agents to give you bad details on the sales price. So um, whenever you find someone who knows what they're doing, stick with them. But I have a lot of wholesalers that contact me as well and say, like, what's your buy box? Can we jump on a call? Can you fill out this form? I used to do that all the time. I don't do that anymore. I tell them, what do you have that's not closing? What do you have that needs to close in the next 7 or 10 days? I can pay cash. And if you're going to buy from a wholesaler, you got to really know what you're doing. You got to do your own due diligence, run your own numbers. And so I almost like to do it the Warren Buffett way. Like Warren Buffett, when he underwrites a company, he actually hides the current stock price and the valuation from himself because he doesn't want to influence them. And then he underwrites and then he reveals their numbers, so it doesn't influence him at all. I like to do that. I'll start from scratch. I don't care what your number is. I want to know how motivated is the seller? What have you promised that seller? And when do they need to close?
Mhm.
And I can come in and close in cash. You know, I have private lenders. I have my own cash, but I can actually close in cash, and I can close in a few days if title is clear. And if you can make that, not everybody can make that offer to a wholesaler, but if you can make that offer to a wholesaler, it doesn't really matter what their numbers are, in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things I always struggled with is I don't understand people's desire or concern about what somebody else is going to make. Like if a wholesaler, if the numbers work for me, that's the end goal. The numbers work for me. I could care less what the person in front of me is making.
Yeah, we call that pocket watching. The second your job is pocket watching is when you're not going to succeed in this industry. I've had to tell people, I don't care if you bought it for $1. Um, you know, here's what the comps are. Here's what I can pay for it. Here's what it costs to rehab it. If you make a $75 assignment fee, or if you make a $50,000 assignment fee, it is none of my business. I don't care. Double close it if you want to, so you can hide the closing statement from me. Um, but I've never went back and retraded on a wholesaler simply because he was making a big fee. So if you want to pay the money to double close it, you can. If it makes you feel better, or if it helps you hide what you're making from the seller, I could definitely understand that. But I don't care if they're buying it for $1. Um, you know, it's the value doesn't change to me what the property's worth and what I could pay for it.
Well, that's leads me to another thing. Uh, if you're going to spend any kind of time coming to your number, you've put in the work, you might as well write it and submit the offer. Stop negotiating with yourself. I've seen time and time again people just like, well, they're not going to take this, so I'm not going to get a realtor to write this up. Why would you withhold that information? Right? Have them write the offer, submit it.
Are you ready to get started on your real estate investing journey? Well, we put together free resources to help you get started. Check the link in the description.
Yeah, my friend Joe McCall, he's been on my podcast, I've been on his. Joe McCall's a great guy. He's a real giver. He and I are in a mastermind together, and he said like your speed to income is directly proportional with how many offers you make. So I'm kind of implementing more like a Joe McCall mindset, where he's like, all I care about is offers, offers, verbal offers, text offers, written offers. And when he
Mhm.
coaches people, he asks them like, how many offers have you made? Written offers to realtors, to wholesalers, to the homeowner or the property owner. Joe McCall does land flipping now. He did houses for years, but he's really big into land. And like the KPIs he tracks with his students are like offers. And so that is kind of really, I used to do the same thing you're talking about, Jack, where it was like, I'm not even going to write this up. No one's going to accept this. No, you got to make offers. Even if they come back and counter it, man, you got to make offers. That's how you get the ball rolling on this business.
Yeah. Well, that's how we bought a 12-plex. It was sitting on the market for a long time. We wrote the numbers based on the current rents and the number that worked for us. And we went, I think it was a 30+% discount. Didn't think that the person was going to take it at all. And sure enough, we got a 12-plex for a crazy price.
I love that, man. Yeah, small multifamilies, they can be a home run. I know a lot of people in multifamily. I'm in a multifamily mastermind here in Houston, and man, like when you get to like the 120 units, it becomes a business. You have to have a staff, you have property management. There's nothing wrong with that. I know people making big money only buying 100 plus or 80 plus units. But man, I have seen some people really hit some home runs on 8, 12, 16, 24 unit small multifamilies. You're doing more of the work yourself, but man, can you really get some big equity captures?
Well, and there's some things that I've done regarding that. I manage that property personally, and it's actually it's not a very heavy workload. I mean, I just installed a couple blink cameras on the front and the back of the property so I can keep an eye on the snowfall. I put security locks, Slage security locks on the front and the back door so that, for example, I assigned a security code for emergency services, so I'm notified if something is going on. T-Mobile Internet, one of the most cheap things to implement. You don't have to run a cable or anything into the building, and that's what's feeding me on all of that. And then I have a couple extra blink cameras that when I do have a vacant unit, I put them in the vacant unit, leave the door unlocked because the building's secure, and then when somebody wants a showing, I give them a temporary code to the building. They go and show themselves around. I see them come and go because of the blink cameras. And if they want, I do the digital signatures for the lease agreements.
Man, I love that, Jack. Yeah, I do something similar with my single family properties when they're vacant. I have these Halo cameras. They're used a lot on Airbnbs, and their batteries can last months. I have a mobile hotspot from T-Mobile, same thing, right? And they have an option where you can turn the service on or off month to month. There's no contract. If the property's far away from me, you can even find a handyman or a realtor, and you can just ship them in a box, the hotspot, the plug, the cameras, and have either a realtor or a handyman, or my favorite is to have the realtor hire the handyman. And you can set that up for my vacant property so I can watch during the renovation. And I've never had an issue with squatters, but I like to imagine if I have cameras and it shows someone breaking into the property, this whole thing you see in like California and some other states where the cops show up and they have like a falsified lease agreement. I don't know how this would be handled in case law, but I'd like to think when I show a video of them breaking into the property and then 30 minutes later the cops is there, I don't think they're going to get squatters' rights, at least in Texas. I haven't had to test that theory yet, but that's what I've operated off of so far. So I love that you're doing like a digital showing, digital leasing stretch, similar to what I was doing. I didn't even know you were doing that, Jack. That's awesome.
Yeah, try to keep things as straightforward as possible.
How did you finance that small multifamily? Do you have a bank loan on it, or?
Yeah, that was just a local bank again, and it was that relationship.
And what are the terms on that? Did they do 70% LTV, or what they do?
It was something like that. We bought the property at such a discount that we acquired it with cash, and then we refinanced it out the back end. Thankfully, because of the relationship and the equity position we already had in the property because of the purchase, we didn't have to leave that much money in the actual property.
Nice. And is it a 3-year, 5-year, 7-year balloon? Do you know what the terms on that?
I think
mortgage?
it renews every 5, but amortized for 20. It's probably
20-year am on small multifamily is great.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Love that. Okay, and then tell me about the Real Deal Crew. Tell me more about this AI product and this website you got going on.
Well, Real Deal Crew is we help. You've heard some of these nuggets throughout the episode, but we help with some of the automation and AI. But I almost see it as real estate investing business optimization, where we're helping people scale without increasing your headcount. I know that there's a lot of people who they're looking to scale, they want to add people, but sometimes you just need to free up the time, and find some value in a few things. So if you're a great example is, if you have any kind of task that you're doing on a daily basis that you either hate doing or is repetitive, it typically can be automated in some way. And I would make the argument that that's likely the best place to start before you start hiring individuals.
So before we hire, we try to automate. You know, that plays into some of my rules here, that every quarter I try to find something I can automate, delegate, or eliminate every quarter. And what I try to do, and I'll whiteboard it over here to my big board on the right, the one that's off camera. and I try to find every quarter I need to automate, eliminate, or delegate one thing because I need revenue generating activities to kind of be the forefront of what I'm doing. And so I'd be interested. I'm going to take a look at this product, man, and I'm interested to see how this could help me.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things is that, like, if you're you're buying and selling properties, you need to take a second and determine, like, the value of your time. And if you want to do it as something as simple as, let's say you decide that your time is worth $100 an hour when it's all said and done, and you are copying and pasting listings from Zillow into an Excel spreadsheet, that's like a $15 an hour job or less, in some situations. Like, you need to start to assess and value your time. I've heard somebody say recently, you're going to be paid what you believe your time is worth. And if you don't value your time, somebody else is going to determine the value of that time.
Wow. You're going to be paid what you believe your time is worth.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that concept. Not just in the tasks in your real estate business, but I pay someone to mow my lawn because that's a $15 hour less activity. I have a house cleaner every week come to my home just for that same purpose. Because if you can make hundred in real estate, you can make 500, 1,000, sometimes more dollars per hour. So why would you take all this time out of your day? And not everyone's, there's some things people get personal joy out of. I know people who came up with their best ideas while folding laundry. For me, my brain doesn't work that way. It's pure pain and agony when I fold my laundry. And same thing whenever I'm doing certain parts of when I'm like loading spreadsheets and data into things. I don't get any joy or any inspiration out of that. But I know some real estate investors that they love that. They want someone else to get on the phone and close the deal. They want someone else to go to the appointment and walk the property. They don't ever want to see a property again. But for me, I really love talking to sellers. I really love closing deals. I love seeing properties. And so, whatever it is that's most important to you, I think people should be prioritizing, and then you automate, delegate, or eliminate everything else in your life. And I'm excited to see how this tool can help me kind of get more focused for my business.
Well, it's one of those things. We hear the buzzword financial freedom all the time in our industry. But in the end, like, is that really what we're driving for? Like, we need to decide and actually make the conscious decision that what we really truly want is the control of our own time. Time is the most fleeting resource we have as an individual. And if you're not treating it as such, it's going to be gone in a blink. And what did you waste it on? That's why we say we waste time. You spend time. We need to see that as much of a currency. And I would place it as much of a currency as gold. Gold is a limited resource. Your time is a limited resource. You got to treat it as a precious resource.
Yeah, I love that, brother. So let's move on to the last segment of the show. I like to remind everybody on this that we're usually in a path in our life and we're sailing through the ocean like a ship. But ships are large, they turn very slow. They set a course and typically stick to it. And when I talk to people, I've learned that they think they're on a course of their own free will, but they were usually set on course by their friends, family, where they were born, where they went to school, the influences around them. Um, and then I've noticed when I talk to real estate investors and entrepreneurs, there was something that turned the course of their ship and brought them into the world they're in now, and that's usually a book. And so, either what book either changed the course of your life the most before you got into real estate, or changed how you did real estate once you got here.
Well, I hate to do it, but in fact, I ask for a book recommendation on my podcast, but I restrict it. I typically say, don't say Rich Dad Poor Dad. But if you're going to put me to the feet to the coals, that's the beginning of things. However, I'm going to if you're looking for a book recommendation, I'm going to tell people to check out Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. And it kind of focuses on what I was just talking about a minute ago, about valuing your time, and what you were talking about, Michael, about removing some of those low-hanging fruit and freeing up your time for the things that make you money.
Yeah, I love that you say that. In fact, I've got one of the original copies right here, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Not like the most original, but it's a pretty old copy. It's still in plastic. I'm going to meet Robert Kiyosaki and have him sign this one at some point. I keep wanting to put it back on the bookshelf, but every time I do a podcast, someone brings up Rich Dad Poor Dad, so I haven't been able to take it off my desk yet.
I actually would make the argument. I prefer Cash Flow Quadrant is his books, but that one really set things closer to the whole business ownership type thing.
Yeah, Cash Flow Quadrant really changed how I look at everything in life. It really made me question what I was doing with myself and my time when I read Cash Flow Quadrant. Yeah, I love it, brother. That's powerful. So next, we're big believers in the Go Giver here, and I know you are too because you've got the book right behind you, The Go Giver. And so I like to tell everybody on every episode, when you were born, your parents, they had to give to you long before you were capable of giving back to them. And if you work a W-2 job, you're working two or more weeks before you get a paycheck. So if you think you're going to stand in front of a fireplace holding firewood saying, give me warmth first, and then I'll give you this wood, it's going to be a very cold winter for you. So I ask every guest on every podcast, what can you give the audience today?
Well, I'm going to direct everybody. You can either go to realdealcrew.com or directly to egghead.com. That's egghed.com. That is a consolidation of AI-driven real estate investing tools. When you create an account there, it's going to give you some initial credits for free, and you can have at some of those tools. Everything from it'll help you generate a property description for an MLS listing to help you define your buy box, return on investment on a rental property, return on investment of a fix and flip. So I'm adding some tools there all the time, a little prompt engineering exercises to help people out.
Love that, brother. And then what can the audience give you in return?
Well, I'm going to direct everybody to realdealcrew.com. It's kind of a consolidation of everything. You can see it as my link tree, if you will. It's going to have links to all of my podcasts and socials there.
Awesome. So give Jack a follow on some of his social media, show him some love. And then my last question I ask is, where can people find you? But you definitely answered that. It's all in one location, the realdealcrew.com, right?
Realdealcrew.com is a great place to find me.
Awesome, brother. We're going to get out of here. So this is Michael Hoang for the Be Someone podcast. If you like the show, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you own. If you're in YouTube, leave me a comment below. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM on Instagram at Michael Be Someone. However, at least for now, I'm giving out my phone number on every single podcast. So shoot me a text. Please don't call. I won't answer it. I get as much spam as you guys do. But text me at 832-301-9672. It's Michael Hoang with Jack Haas signing off.
Each week on the Get Wealth Show, you hear real conversations with investors, entrepreneurs, and operators who are building real wealth in the real world. If you're ready to start building wealth through real estate, click the link in the description for free resources and tools to help you get started. And if you want more practical, real-world conversations, follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. We'll see you next time on the Get Wealth Show.